Hello and welcome to another D3+2 battle report. This is the last one that I'm filming in my little time off that I took, so we're going to end with a bang. 1850 points of Ultramarines versus Tau Empire. And to save time, we're just going to jump straight into it because I don't want this to run on too long. So, Ultramarines are being led by Marneus Calgar. He has already rolled his 3 times on the Warlord trait table and picked the one he wanted. He chose Champion of Humanity, although none were that great out of the selection. He's been accompanied by a Honor Guard. The Champion has a Thunderhammer, the rest are equipped as you see, so 2 Power Swords, 2 Power Axes, and they are bringing a Rhino to ride around in. Troops. Scouts as they're usually brought, Camel Cloak, Sniper Rifles, one has a Missile Launcher. A 5-man Tactical Squad, because Tactical Squads are rubbish, so this is a very light on Troops army. 5 Assault Terminators with Thunderhammers and Storm Shields. They're going to be coming in the stock base Land Raider. That is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 Stern Guard, no upgrades, so they've just got their usual special ammunition. They're coming down in a drop pod. Devastator Centurions armed with Grav Cannons, Grav Amps, Hurricane Bolters and Omniscope on the Sergeant, who's just recently painted. The second squad of Centurion Devastators, these are equipped with Las Cannons and, well, twin-linked Las Cannons and Missile Launchers. And now the Tau side. The Tau side is being led by a buff Mander, a commander with basically all the trimmings. Ongar Gauntlet, Neuroweb System Jammer, Command and Control Node, Multi-Spectrum Suite, Iridium Armour. I'm probably forgetting some stuff. He's got tons and tons of stuff. Drone Controller as well, because he's going to be accompanying some drones. And a Cyclic Iron Blaster, or whatever it's called, one of the 2 unique weapons that the Tau commanders can take. He's also got 2 shield drones behind him there. There's also a Cadre, because they're too good for the points not to bring one. He's going to be joined into 9 Fire Warriors with no upgrades. There's also one squad of 6 Fire Warriors, no upgrades. 3 Crisis Suits as you see them, so that is 2 Flamers. That is a Flamer and a Plasma Gun, or Plasma Rifle, whatever they're called. And 2 Fusion Blasters on this one. 10 Gun Drones, as you see them. As I said, the buff Mander will be accompanying them to give them more cover, reroll to hits, BS5 and all that other cheesy nonsense. 2 broadsides, as you see them, heavy rail rifles, smart missile pods and seeker missiles this time, and 4 missile drones accompanying them. 10 Pathfinders with 3 of the Ion something or other, I can't remember the name, I always get them confused. The one that's quite good in AP2, essentially. And they're also bringing along a recon drone, which is a bit hard to see from this angle. Hammerhead with Black Sun Filter, and that's it from memory. Oh, I upgraded the guns on it to smart missiles. 2 Riptides equipped as you see them. So one with smart missiles, one with fusion blasters, both with ion accelerators, both with stimulant injectors to give them feel no pain. And finally a Sunshark bomber. So that's 1850 points of both armies. Oh, the Warlord trait for the commander of the Tau was a Ghost Who Walks Among Us, so he and the unit he joins gets 3d6 for his jetpack moves. We'll be back in a second with deployment and the mission. Here we are at deployment. For the mission, we got Emperor's Will, and it's Hammer and Anvil. I always get the deployment types mixed up. I'm pretty sure this is Hammer and Anvil because Dawn of War is the long edges. Yes, so there's no night fighting, and the Space Marines won the roll-off and opted to deploy first. So they've got their 5-man tactical just sitting there. That gun isn't actually usable, it's just for set dressing. 1 squad of Centurions right up to the line there. The Scouts have already infiltrated just for, they've barely infiltrated at all, but they're just a little bit forward basically to have position in that building. The other squad of Centurions is sitting on the 1 objective on the Space Marine side, which is what I was using for the Relic in the previous game. So Emperor's Will is just 1 objective each, so they're claiming it for this side. Calgar and his Honor Guard are in the Rhino, and they're being vanguarded by the Land Raider, which has the Assault Terminators in it. And also the Stern Guard are coming down in the drop pods. So there's not actually much on the Space Marine side on the board from the start. The Tau side, most of it has deployed back from the line rather. The Flyer obviously can't come in turn 1, and the Crisis Suits have opted to come in at a later date as well. So there's the buff Mander as part of the gun drone unit there. Where the board sides are being a bit cheeky by balancing on top of the upper floor of that building with their missile drones in front. 1 Riptide is here next to one of the Fire Warrior squads. Hammerhead is there just because I thought it looked quite smart sitting on the stripes there. Riptide Prime is putting his body in front of the 9 Fire Warriors and the Fire Cadre, or the Cadre whatever he's called, which is also on the tail objective, which is in there. And finally, the Pathfinders are a little bit in front of where the deployment ends because they get a scout move, so it's just been done like that to save time. All that remains to be seen is if the Tau steal initiative. They do not. So, we'll be getting started with Space Marine turn 1. End of Space Marine turn 1, and of course the Stern Guard came in thanks to Drop Pod Assault. They landed a little bit off target, so they had a choice between two targets, the Riptide Prime there, or the Pathfinders. They decided to use the cover ignoring special ammunition they have and hoped to take out the Pathfinders. They actually left about half the squad alive, so they killed 5. The snipers then joined in to help try and kill them. The Devastator Centurions here with the grav amps and whatnot, they also moved around, used the Hurricane bolters, used the grav cannons anyway, even though they're wounding on 5s because Pathfinder's armour is 5+. Still didn't manage to kill them all because this guy at the back there can't actually be seen by anyone. Well, the snipers could technically have, but they killed some people in front of him. And that was all that fired at them, which left the drone with its 2 wounds still alive, the recon drone, and 1 Pathfinder. Their morale held, so First Blood was denied. The drop pod even tried to snapfire at them in desperation to try and get First Blood secured. The Devastator Centurions down here with their last cannons and missile launchers and their 48-inch range with no night fighting shot into the broadsides. The Rhino and the Land Raider both moved at combat speed, so they moved to 12 inches. They then snapfired, or rather the Land Raider snap-fired. He snap-fired 1 twin-link glass cannon at Riptide Prime, did a wound. He did nothing with the other last cannon, but his heavy bolter, combined with the Centurions down there, did some damage to the broadside unit. They killed the front 2 missile drones who were perched on the balcony and did 1 wound to one of the broadsides. But their morale held as well. So First Blood has been denied, which is a shame because that was going to put them in a really good position. Really the only major casualties were the Pathfinders, and they may not even be required for what's about to come. So we'll see what the Tau do in their first turn. A small quick addition, I forgot to mention that the Space Marines used their tactical doctrine this turn, so everybody was re-rolling 1s, which actually made a huge difference to some of the casualties as a lot of 1s got rolled. And keep in mind that Marnie's Calgar actually lets you use a tactical or any doctrine of the Ultramarines twice in a game. End of Tau turn 1, and before I forget, I'm just going to do assault moves in between turns because it's a bit more confusing when things have already moved in the assault phase to say where they were when they were shooting. So keep that in mind. The Riptide, the commander and his unit can all jetpack move after I finish recapping what happened, and also the Warlord trait for the commander means that they get 3d6 rather than 2. Anyway, the Tau largely stood still because that's what the Tau do. The Riptide repositioned themselves to get firing lines, and the commander and his unit kind of bounced over because they can do that because they're jetpack units. They still have to be limited by 6 inches movement though. Yeah, everything else basically stood still, including the Pathfinder survivor and his recon drone resolving themselves to the fact they'll probably die. It was Operation Get First Blood now that the Space Marines messed up and didn't get it. Now, sadly that didn't happen. Also, I forgot there's a leadership test to be had here, but we'll do that in a second. So, the drone and the surviving Pathfinder, the gun drones that could see the tail end of the Stern Guard, the units over here with the Cadre and his team that could see, and even the smart missiles from the Riptide, the missile drones and the smart missiles, which, in case you aren't aware, don't need line of sight, all fired into the Stern Guard, and it resulted in half of them dying. They were just on fire with their cover saves and, armor saves rather, 3+ armor. So they didn't die, but I did forget to do the leadership, so there's a leadership. They passed, so they're still there, and they're still very much alive, which is incredibly surprising. It's bad luck on both sides so far today, it seems. Other than that, apologies for fast cam as we come around the far side of the table. Ooh, as I almost knocked over one of my army lists. This Riptide opted to overcharge his ion accelerator, just overcharge it, not overcharge it. Oh, also he got a 3+ invuln for his engine activating. Riptide Prime's engine mishapped, but he got his feel no pain, so no wound there. He fired the large blast, AP2 strength 8. It scattered wildly. He was aiming for, well actually he was going to aim for the Land Raider, but then he thought it would be a much better idea to try and knock the Centurions off of the objective, because that would kill 2 birds with 1 stone essentially. He whiffed, so it didn't really matter. So and also the Hammerhead fired, got a hit easily on the Land Raider, but didn't actually even glance it, sadly. So as far as casualties, half the Stern Guard died, so they're pretty evenly matched. I mean, most of the Pathfinders died the first Space Marines turn, but other than that, not much happened. So now assault moves will happen. The Riptides will obviously move out of the way to try and avoid being assaulted next turn, as will the commander and his big unit. And, well, it's in the Space Marine's hands now. They can potentially get first blood. Let's see if they do as we go into Space Marine turn 2. End of Space Marines turn 2, and Marneus Calgar used the second tactical doctrine, so everybody was re-rolling ones once again, and that is part of what makes him so amazing, thanks to being able to pick to do that twice. And the first 2 turns of the game are definitely the best time to do them because you have the most guns on the board. Anyway, the Rhino with Marneus and his Honor Guard, it moved up cruising combat speed, or cruising, whichever one the 12 inches is, and then also flat outed in the assault phase. The Land Raider just moved up 12 in total so it could still snap fire its guns. It did so at the Riptide, and even though it had a 3+ invuln, it managed to get 1 wound through on it, and that's it. But because it moved more than 6, the Terminators couldn't assault from it, so they're still patiently waiting. There's not going to be much room for the Riptide to do any running next turn. The Stern Guard moved and got a bad move through cover roll, so they just kind of hunkered down inside the forest. They fired their ignore cover again at the surviving drone and Pathfinder. They killed the drone, but the Pathfinder still lived, so the snipers had to take a shot because they were the only other things it could see. The rocket launcher guy fired a single shot rocket first, and that's what did it. It just obliterated the poor Pathfinder's face. So the Pathfinders got wiped out, and that was first blood. The Centurions moved up, and they're limited by their 24-inch range, but they fired their Hurricane Bolters and their Grav Cannons, and they got tons and tons of wounds on the commander's unit of gun drones, but because of range and also the fact that they can't see half of them, they only killed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 outright. Their morale was passed. The only other thing to happen was the other Centurions, way down the other end of the table, all the way down there, they shot into the broadsides once again, and the last cannon wounds got through and killed the one that was wounded and insta-killed the other one. You may hear an ice cream van in the background, please ignore that. The gun drone's morale miraculously passed with a roll of a 4. So they're okay, but the broadsides are dead. And that is about it. So first blood did get scored, although there wasn't as many casualties as you would have thought would have happened given the situation the Tau appeared to be in after a bad first turn. But anyway, we'll check Tau reserves now. So Crisis Suits, they're in. Sunshark Bomber. Okay, all the Tau army is now coming on the board as we go into Tau turn 2. End of Tau turn 2, and we did see all the army now coming onto the field because the Sunshark Bomber came on, and of course so did the Crisis Suits. The Sunshark Bomber came up quite far, dropped off his, I can't remember what they're called, the drones with the ion rifles who fired into the Centurions. The Sunshark dropped his bomb on the surviving Stern Guard and didn't actually get a kill. He also rolled a 1 when trying to generate another one, so he won't get another one for the rest of the game. That is really bad. He's now just a marker light and a smart missile system, sadly. Everyone else basically stayed in position. The commander and his surviving drones repositioned slightly, so did the Riptides, but that was essentially it. The missile drones moved forward there. The Crisis Suits almost got a mishap because they scattered exceptionally close to the very edge. They originally landed roughly where the measuring tape is, and they scattered 9 inches back, but they survived. And where they stood, they shot into the Centurions guarding the one objective on the Space Marine side and killed one of them, because they had some AP2 in there thanks to fusion blasters and also plasma rifle. They're in 5+ cover, so they do technically have a different save that they can take, but that did not save one of them, who also happened to be the sergeant because I wasn't paying attention. So the sergeant of that squad's dead. Luckily, Marneus Calgar means that nobody has to fail a morale test unless they want to. Let's see, what else? Well, the Riptide here, he didn't do so well, technically. He tried to do the Nova engine to get to fire his fusion blaster twice in order to try and take out the Land Raider. Failed and wounded himself. Riptide Prime also failed his Nova engine this turn, but his Feel No Pain protected him. So yeah, the one shot he got with his fusion blaster didn't manage to penetrate. His Ion Accelerator was overcharged, and that scattered wildly for the second turn in the game. The missile pods fired at the Rhino to try and kill it, so did the gun drones with the commander, and so did the smart missiles of Riptide Prime for lack of anything better to fire at. All in all, 2 hull points were done to the Rhino, so it's got 1 surviving hull point. The Hammerhead whiffed his railgun shot against the Land Raider, and I believe that was it. The stern guard were eventually finished off, actually, I forgot to mention that, by combined fire from the Cadre's Fireblade and his Fire Warriors firing into them, so they're all dead. So the stern guard are gone, but it's still looking like the Space Marines are in a position of power here, unless the rest of these guys get knocked off the table by the Crisis Suits. So we'll see what happens as we go into Space Marines turn 3. End of Space Marine turn 3, and combined fire from the 5-man tactical squad there and the Centurions armed with blast cannons and missile launchers annihilated the Crisis Suits and killed them to a man, so they're now relatively safe, although they are now exposed in the open. But yep, they're dead. The other Centurions moved up, and for lack of anything better, actually they probably picked poorly. They opted to fire at the flyer, even though it's technically almost defenceless now, hitting on 6s and then re-rolling 6s to cause an immobilized result. Got nothing, so they did nothing this turn, sadly. The snipers opted to fire into the commander's unit and did nothing. The drop pod also fired into it, and so did the Stormbolter on the Rhino. Marneus Calgar and his Honor Guard disembarked, and they got a run move of a whole 1 inch, so all they used that for was to spread out a little bit, so they're now out and potentially going to do some damage next turn, maybe. Come round the far end of the table, forgive fast cam. I know it goes a bit blurry sometimes, but we have to see what happens here. The Land Raider moved up 6 in the shooting phase. It snap fired its heavy bolter, fired 1 last cannon at the closest Riptide and dealt a wound. The Power of the Machine Spirit used the other last cannon to fire at the Hammerhead and didn't whiff, but just failed to get a glance or a pen. The Assault Terminators came out. They made an easy charge against the Riptide. The Fire Warriors there joined in on Overwatch, but no wounds were dealt. In combat, the Riptide got to go first because they're all hitting at initiative 1 and killed one of them. So before they even got to swing, 1 Terminator was down. However, the surviving 4 easily smushed the two remaining wounds on Ovessa Riptide there. So he is dead, and they consolidated 2 inches, which is basically just to get them out into where you see them now. And that was it. So now we're going to go into the Tau third turn. End of a somewhat eventful turn 3 for the Tau. The Sunshark Bomber had to twist ever so slightly and move. He's going to go off the table next turn, I believe. He only has a smart missile systems now and a marker light for all the good that is. He shot at the Tactical Marines and actually managed to kill one, but they don't have to take a morale test because of Calgar still being alive, so that's all that happened at this end of the table. The 2 drones that the Sunshark dropped off fired into the Centurions. Strength 8, only AP 4, but still. Bad rolls meant that a Centurion died. The commander opted to actually fire this turn, his Cyclic Ion Blaster, whatever it's called, plus the drones. And they managed to get 1 more wound through, which is on the Sergeant, because again, didn't realise he was the closest. Even though he's painted now, still didn't realise, but never mind. He's got 1 wound left. Other than that, this Riptide Prime, or it's the only one on the board now actually, and also the Cadre and the Fire Warriors here, they all shot into Calgar and his Honor Guard. The resulting deaths were just a single Honor Guard, everyone else is absolutely fine. The missile drones also fired into them and did nothing. Over here, the Hammerhead and the squad of 6 Fire Warriors all fired everything they had into the Terminators and didn't kill any of them, so there's still 4 left alive there. So that's it for this turn. We're going into turn 4 for the Space Marines now. End of Space Marine turn 4. It saw some repositioning down this end of the table. The other squad of Centurions moved up and positioned ever so slightly after the commander and the surviving drones used their big assault move to get as far away from Calgar as possible at the tail end of the previous Tau turn. The Rhino moved up full speed, 12 inches, and Calgar and his Honor Guard moved up and ran to kind of use it as cover from a lot of the fire from the Fire Warriors to hopefully get into combat with minimum casualties. The drop pod pot-shotted into them and failed to do anything. No one shot at these little guys. Over here, the Power of the Machine Spirit was used on the Heavy Bolter to fire into the Fire Warrior squad that was here. Killed 3 of them, so that only left 3 left who fired Overwatch at the Terminators, failed to do anything, and were smashed in combat. So the Terminators are consolidated just in front of the Hammerhead there. Oh, also, the last cannons on the Land Raider there fired at the Hammerhead. Remember, you can use Power of the Machine Spirit to fire a different target. and it opted to Jink, and because of that it has disruption pause as well, which I think I forgot to mention at the start. It had a good cover save, so it survived with no damage at all, but it does mean it's firing snapshots with everything next turn. And I think that was it. Oh, actually, yes, the Centurions here, they fired everything they had into the squad here and took out the 2 shield drones, and that's it. And before my dog barks again, we shall very quickly move into Tau turn 4. End of Tau turn 4, and everything down this end of the board, the snap firing Hammerhead, Riptide Prime, who I forgot to mention in the last turn wounded himself trying to get his Nova engine off, did the exact same thing this turn, so he now has 2 wounds left of his own volition. The fire warriors that could actually see, which was not all of them thanks to the Hammerhead, they all shot, including also the 2 surviving drones from the broadside squad. They all fired into the Terminators. The drones killed 1, believe it or not, the Riptide killed 1, and the fire warriors killed the remaining 2, so the assault Terminators are dead. The drones that dropped off the Sunsharp bomber rapid fired into Calgar's unit and did nothing. The commander and his surviving drones shuffled along slightly in the movement phase. Keep in mind again, they do their assault move after I finished recounting all this. They fired into the Centurions, did 1 wound, and I switched who was closest. Also apologies, there's a loud truck going past the window. So that's both of the surviving Centurions now on 1 wound each. The Sunsharp bomber opted to stay on the table by turning and pivoting because his smart missile system is 360 degrees since it's on top and on one of those spindles, and it fired into the Tactical Marines and did nothing. So now we're going into what could very well be the last turn of the game, so we're going to go into turn 5 for the Space Marines. End of Space Marine turn 5, the 2 Centurions still holding our objective down this end, and also the slightly repositioned Tactical Marines fired into the commander and his drones. Managed to kill 3 drones, their leadership held however, so they're still there. They're potentially going for, well, they already have Line Breaker actually, they're trying to cause trouble over by the Space Marine objective. That's basically the only recourse the Tau have at this point. The Centurions moved into cover with a pretty bad move through cover roll. They shot at the Riptide Prime though, because they were within 24 inches, so they're 10 because one's dead. Grav shots plus their Hurricane Bolters, they managed to clip off the final 2 wounds of Riptide Prime and killed him. The Rhino's Stormbolter and the Stormbolter on the drop pod fired into the drones from the Sunsharp bomber and killed them. Marneus and his Honor Guard moved up, they fired pistols, and Marneus fired his assault based Stormbolter into the fire warriors. They killed a few and probably shouldn't have done that. It was done to lessen the Overwatch shots. Overwatch happened and the charge was failed, so they're just standing out in the open now, but there's not much left on this end of the table or in general for the Tau really. The Land Raider used Power of Machine Spirit on the Heavy Bolter to kill 1 more fire warrior back there. Last cannons once again fired into the Hammerhead. The Land Raider hasn't been moving by the way, so it's all weapons at full BS. Didn't opt to Jink, only 1 hit happened, the other missed, and it didn't even glance. So it was a wise decision there. So we're going into what could potentially be the final turn, turn 5 for the Tau. End of Tau turn 5, and the Hammerhead and the surviving fire warriors with the Cadre all fired into Marneus and his Honor Guard. Got some lucky hits, well, a lot of wounds, and some very unlucky ones were rolled, which ended up killing 3 Honor Guard, including the champion. So it's just Marneus and 1 regular Honor Guard left alive. Obviously they don't test for morale due to Marneus's rules. But yeah, that's what happened down there. Now I've already done the assault move with the commander, because if this is indeed the final turn of the game, it might have mattered if he'd rolled, say, about, well, remember he can roll 3 dice for his assault move as per his warlord trait, so he could have had up to 18 inches, and if he'd gotten close to that he could have contested the objective. So he only got 6, there you go, that's what was rolled for his assault move, 3 2s, so they already moved forward. But in the shooting phase they all fired, including the commander. He fired his Cyclic Blaster again, got just enough wounds to actually kill the Tactical Marines. So the only things holding the objective down here are the 2 surviving Centurions, and now we're going to see if that was the end of the game. That's a 2. So the game is over. And here we are at the end of the game. I knew it was going to be tough for the Tau going against the Space Marines at this kind of point level, as Space Marines tend to do better the higher the point value that's being played. As it happens, it has been a Space Marine victory. My Tau army has finally lost, but it was very, very close. Granted, In terms of units left on the table, the Tau were very clearly losing due to some very bad luck early on. But in terms of points, it comes down to First Blood. They successfully hold their objective still. Granted, if it went to turn 6, Marneus and his surviving 1 Honour Guard probably were going to at very least contest it unless they just got annihilated by Overwatch, which was very unlikely to happen. And down here, the Centurions still hold the Space Marine objective, and did do for the entire game. So that means they both still hold their objective. That's 3 points each, I believe. They both have Linebreaker. The Commander has Linebreaker. Marneus has Linebreaker still. And I think technically does the Transport give it as well? Or no, that just gives objective secured. The Centurions are just out of the deployment range, but Marneus is definitely in. So yeah, they both have Linebreaker. No Warlord died, as Marneus and the Tau Commander are both still living. So it does come down to First Blood, which was the Pathfinders finally getting wiped off the table, wasn't it? So if the Tau had just got those last few wounds, or if more of the army could see around the drop pod from where it landed and the Stern Guard got shot off turn 1 instead of a later turn, it would have been a Tau victory. So it just came down to First Blood, as it often does in Emperor as well. That's why both sides were trying so hard to get it. So yeah, the Tau army has finally lost to a Space Marine army, just by a bit of bad luck, although if the game had gone on to turn 6, I think it would have been assured. But either way, this was a lot of fun. If you enjoyed, please do consider leaving a like, and this is the end of my little break I'm taking, so there will now be a longer delay between future bat reps. So be sure to subscribe and you will get a little notification in your YouTube home window when a new one goes up. Open to suggestions about what kind of lists you want to see. I'm open to ideas about, just fun lists, like in the past I've done Dreadnought spam lists even though they're silly. Just for fun. But I hope you enjoyed either way, and I shall see you next time. Thank you for watching, and ta-ta for now.